They told you that if you just worked hard, kept your head down, and followed the rules, success would come. That the system was designed to reward the obedient, the disciplined, the loyal. And maybe for a while, you believed that. But deep down, something never quite felt right. You saw people working themselves to the bone year after year and still struggling to pay the rent. You saw parents sacrificing everything, only to grow old and tired with nothing to show but a pension that barely paid for groceries. And then you saw others, people who didn't follow the rules, rise to levels of wealth and freedom you were told were only for the lucky. And it hit you, something is broken. But what's broken is not the world. It's not the economy. It's not even the system. It's the thinking. You see, poverty is not just a lack of money. It's a mindset, a virus of limitation passed from generation to generation. It starts with phrases like, "We can't afford that," "Money doesn't grow on trees," "Rich people are greedy," "Be grateful you even have a job." These are not just words, these are spells. Mental shackles that imprison your potential and chain you to a lifetime of financial survival, not success. Robert Kiyosaki once said, "The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them." And while the world claps for hard work, it punishes the blind. Because effort without direction is slavery. You can sprint on a treadmill your whole life and still be in the same place. Poor thinking teaches obedience. Rich thinking demands ownership. Let that sink in. Poor thinking says, do what you're told. Rich thinking says, build what you believe. The employee mindset, the one they drill into you from age 5 in a classroom where everyone sits in straight lines and raises hands for permission. That mindset was never designed to create freedom. It was designed to produce workers, cogs in a machine. And that's the problem. We've been taught to fear risk more than regret, to trade time for paychecks instead of building assets, to chase job security rather than financial sovereignty. And here's the brutal truth. The system rewards those who think differently. Henry Ford wasn't a genius mechanic. He was a visionary who saw systems. Walt Disney wasn't just an artist. He was a master of intellectual property. Steve Jobs didn't write code. He rewrote the rules of value. And Kiyosaki? He wasn't selling books. He was selling perspective. And perspective is everything. Because you can look at a pile of bricks and see a burden, or you can see the foundation of an empire. You can look at your job and see safety, or you can see a cage. You can look at your paycheck and say, it's enough. Or you can say, this is fuel, not freedom. It begins in the mind. See, the poor are taught to budget their life around limits. The rich budget their life around opportunities. Poor thinking says, what can I afford? Rich thinking asks, how can I afford it? One kills curiosity, the other ignites it. That's why belief is the first battlefield. Because if you believe money is evil, you'll subconsciously push it away. If you believe wealth is only for the lucky or the corrupt, you'll sabotage your own success. But if you believe, truly believe, that wealth is your responsibility, not just your desire, then everything changes. Because belief births clarity, and clarity is rare in a world drowning in noise. When you're clear, you stop chasing distractions. You stop trying to look rich and start building real wealth. You stop comparing and start creating. You stop following and you start leading. That clarity gives birth to vision, and not the kind that just dreams, but the kind that demands. See, dreams whisper, but vision commands. Vision doesn't just see the finish line, it architects the path. Vision wakes you up before the sun rises. It keeps you moving when your body's tired and your bank account is low. Because vision is not about where you are, it's about who you're becoming. But vision without purpose is still fragile. Purpose is the fire beneath the vision. It's what keeps you going when the results don't come. It's what gives meaning to the grind and power to the pain. Ask yourself, why do you want to be wealthy? To impress others? To prove someone wrong? Those motives may spark you, but they won't sustain you. Real purpose is rooted in freedom. The freedom to live life on your terms. To give your family the life they deserve. To create, to contribute, to leave a legacy. Purpose turns profit into impact. It transforms money from a goal into a tool. And when you have purpose, you gain something most people never touch: discipline. Not the discipline of rules, but the discipline of results. The ability to delay gratification, to build when no one is watching, to invest when others are spending, to learn when others are scrolling, to say no to the short term so you can say yes to the extraordinary. Because let's be honest, most people won't do the work. They'll keep blaming the government, the economy, their boss, their past. They'll keep praying for a raise instead of building income streams. They'll keep living in survival mode while convincing themselves they're being realistic. But realistic thinking is often just fear in disguise. You were not born to play small. You were not born to beg for scraps at someone else's table. You were born to own the table. But ownership starts inside. It's mental. You must own your thinking, own your emotions, own your decisions. Because if you can't control your thoughts, you'll never control your outcomes. And your bank account will always reflect your belief system. Don't be fooled by appearance. The broke man with rich thinking is closer to freedom than the rich man with poor thinking. Because eventually one will rise and the other will fall. Wealth built on scarcity will always crumble. But wealth rooted in vision, discipline, and courage, that lasts. And that courage, it's not the absence of fear, it's the willingness to walk through it, to risk ridicule, to invest in yourself, to keep moving forward while others wait for permission. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb, not because he was the smartest, but because he refused to quit when it was dark. And now the question is, will you? Will you continue letting poor thinking write your story? Or will you break the cycle and rewrite your legacy? Because your future doesn't begin when you hit a goal. It begins now, the moment you choose to think differently. You see, action without transformation is temporary. You can read a book, attend a seminar, write down goals, and still fall back into the same loops, the same habits, the same paycheck to paycheck panic. Why? Because you didn't rewire the root. You didn't uproot the poverty programming, the subtle commands buried deep in your subconscious, telling you to play it safe, stay in line, avoid risk, wait your turn. But the truth, your turn is never given. It's taken with conviction. That's why your discipline must evolve into decisive action, not frantic movement, not busy work masked as progress, but intelligent, deliberate, wealth-generating action. Ask any self-made millionaire. The turning point wasn't in what they did, it was in what they stopped doing. They stopped trading hours for security, stopped blaming external forces for internal apathy, stopped fearing the opinions of people who were never building anything themselves. Because eventually you realize, success is not about addition, it's about subtraction. You remove distractions, you remove toxic beliefs, you remove mediocre routines, and what's left is power. But here's where most people sabotage. They want the rewards of the rich with the comfort of the poor. They want passive income, but they live in passive intent. They want big results, but make small decisions. They crave freedom, but run from responsibility. They forget that money is simply energy, and energy flows to the ones who know how to direct it. That's why gratitude isn't just a fluffy concept. It's a strategy. The poor think gratitude is about settling. Be thankful you have a job. Be thankful you have a roof over your head. And yes, gratitude for the present is powerful, but not when it becomes an excuse for stagnation. True gratitude fuels growth. It's looking at what you have and saying, this is not the end. This is my beginning. This job, it funds my vision. This challenge, it's building my resilience. This moment, it's teaching me something money can't. Gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to resourcefulness. And resourcefulness is the real wealth multiplier. Because you'll never have all the answers. You'll never feel fully ready. But the greats, the Disneys, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, they started anyway. They leveraged what they had. They adapted. And if you want to thrive in this new economy, an economy where AI is replacing jobs, where inflation is devouring savings, where traditional degrees no longer guarantee anything, you need adaptability. Poor thinking clings to the old ways. Rich thinking flows with the future. You don't ask, is my job safe? You ask, how do I create value in ways machines never will? You don't fear change. You capitalize on it. Because in every economic collapse, every disruption, every storm, there are two types of people: those who freeze and those who fortify. And the fortified are not just skilled, they're resilient, not emotionally fragile, not addicted to comfort. They're forged in setbacks, strengthened by failure. Remember this, you can't build wealth with a weak spine. When the stock market crashes, when your first business fails, when you get rejected, mocked, misunderstood, will you crumble? Or will you rise like Lincoln did after losing 8 elections before becoming president? Will you persist like Colonel Sanders, rejected over 1,000 times before someone said yes to his chicken recipe at age 65? Will you endure, not because you enjoy pain, but because you're more loyal to your vision than your emotions? That's the kind of mindset that makes you dangerous, unstoppable, not to others, but to limitation itself. And once you combine that with one final ingredient, you become financially inevitable. Relentless learning, because money doesn't flow to effort, it flows to value. And value is a byproduct of knowledge applied. Poor thinking stops learning after school. Rich thinking never stops. Because every book you read, every mentor you study, every course you complete is another layer of armor, another weapon in your arsenal, another bridge from who you are to who you're becoming. And understand this, learning is no longer optional. We live in a world where information is free, but execution is rare, where you can learn any skill online, build global income streams, launch digital assets from your phone. And yet most people use that same phone to scroll memes and argue with strangers. Knowledge is power, but only when monetized. So ask yourself, how many books have you read on money? How many hours have you invested in mastering your craft? How often do you reflect, journal, analyze, improve? Because wealth doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to patterns. And the patterns of the rich are different. They study, they strategize, they execute. They don't ask, how much will it cost? They ask, what will this knowledge earn me in the long run? That's why the most expensive thing you'll ever own is a poor mindset. Because it doesn't just cost you money, it costs you time, confidence, freedom, impact. So here's the truth, and it's not sugar-coated. You are either reinforcing poor thinking or replacing it every single day. There is no neutral. There is no pause button. You're either compounding wealth or compounding regret. And when your time here is done, the world will not remember what you intended to do. It will remember what you built, what you changed, what you owned. So own your thoughts, own your vision, own your value. Because poverty is not your destiny. But if you don't fight for your mind, it will become your reality. And now we arrive at the precipice, the place where ordinary minds turn back and uncommon minds break through. Because by now, if your heart hasn't shifted, if your spine hasn't straightened, if your soul hasn't stirred, then you're still negotiating with your excuses. But if you have felt something, if even a flicker of fire has returned to your chest, then listen closely. This isn't just about money. This is about ownership of self. The rich are not just richer in dollars. They're richer in decisions. They own their 24 hours. They own their future. They own their response to every storm life throws at them. Because here's the secret they'll never teach you in school. Your bank account is just a mirror. It reflects the mindset you've lived with, the risks you've taken, the value you've given, and the beliefs you've allowed. You can't hack it. You can't shortcut it. You can't manifest millions from the couch. You become the version of you that money trusts. Think of money as a living force. It flows where it's respected, where it's multiplied, where it's protected by vision and purpose, and it runs fast from fear, from desperation, from emotional spending and short-term thinking. So if you're broke right now, don't hide from it. Don't shame it. Don't justify it. Study it. Ask yourself, what did I tolerate? What did I believe? What did I fail to confront? Because once you name the lie, you take back the truth. The truth that you were not born to just survive. You were not meant to live stuck in loops of scarcity, praying for weekends, watching life through the window of a paycheck. You were designed to dominate your domain, to create, to build, to expand, to step into ownership, not just of property or stocks, but of your identity. Because real wealth is not just what you earn, it's who you become in the process. Do you want to know why most people stay poor? Not because they're lazy, not because they're stupid, but because they won't let go. They won't let go of the story that says, people like me can't succeed. They won't let go of the comfort that keeps them crawling. They won't let go of the fear that says, what if I fail? But here's the truth most never hear. You're already failing if you're not trying. You're already broke if your mind is bankrupt. You're already poor if you've settled for survival. So what's the answer? It's not one habit, not one guru, not one miracle morning. It's a way of life, a daily discipline, a relentless war against mediocrity, a deep, unshakable decision that you will never again think like the broke version of you. You will no longer buy what you can't afford to impress people who don't care. You will no longer escape your life with entertainment instead of elevating it with education. You will no longer tolerate the voice in your head that tells you it's too late, too hard, too risky. Because the greatest risk is staying the same. You were born into a system that trains you to follow, to obey, to consume, and to repeat. But you are not a robot. You are not a cog. You are not a pawn in someone else's game. You are the author, the builder, the owner. And the pen is in your hand now. So write the story where you rise, where you multiply, where you look back a year from now, 5 years from now, and the person you were today is unrecognizable. Not because life got easier, but because you got sharper, more dangerous, more disciplined, more wealthy, in mind, in mission, and in money. You don't need another motivational speech. You need a vow, a sacred vow to never think like the broke again, because that's all poverty is, a virus of the mind. And today, right now, you become immune. No more waiting, no more hoping, no more outsourcing your power to circumstances, politics, markets, or mentors. You are the asset, you are the brand, you are the economy. And from this moment on, every dollar you earn, every decision you make, every breath you take, will be a reflection of the richest thing you now possess, a free mind. So rise, building own, because the graveyard is full of dreams that died from poor thinking. But yours won't be one of them. Not anymore. Not ever again.